Parliament Speaker Rebecca Kadaga ruffles feathers when she takes on her hosts, saying, "Don't dictate to us, we're not your fiefdom." We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Eid. Today is Eid Day. Muslims marked the day by praying and slaughtering animals. Many clerics across the spectrum preached against greed and selfishness, which they say is eating up the Ugandan society, underlining the fact that this country is getting disunited, they say, and they say levels of patriotism are going down. We'll look at that. Also, we know that students sat for the exams today, even though it was a public holiday, and to capital, they sat for the wrong, Islam exams. We'll look at what all those things could be. Of course, it's also the year that Ugandan Muslims couldn't make the pilgrimage to Mecca. Does that mean anything at all? Our guests, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Uganda representative at the East African Parliament. You're most welcome, Honorable Wanyoto.
Good evening, our listeners, and happy Eid.
Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, Country Manager to TWAWEZA Uganda Chapter. You're most welcome, Morrison.
Thank you very much, and good evening, dear listeners, and happy Eid.
Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, Legal Consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on social and political issues. You're most welcome, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo.
Thank you very much, and to all my Muslim brothers and sisters, happy Eid.
Well, the corruption and financial management scandal continues to unravel in the office of the Prime Minister. Some people think it's going to go to other ministries as well because the President has ordered it. Now, the Irish government has suspended all financial assistance to this country. They will hold 17 million euros, which they're supposed to give us. It's said that 4 million euros up to 4 million euros was swindled. Nicholas, the scandal in the office of the Prime Minister and the investigation, let's try to look at the positive side of it. Will it end corruption in this country for good?
Well, sometimes it pains me to discuss some of the things. Anybody who cares about the welfare of people of this country would feel saddened by the outright daylight theft, not just in OPM. And again, for me, the problem is that Ugandans do seem to be driven by events. We take the OPM, discuss it. After a week, it is off the debate. We move on to the next story. It is pensions, it is the bicycle scandal, it is helicopters. It has been a systemic breakdown or revelation of corruption scandals after another. I think for me, we must begin to read the trends and begin to know, and as somebody in the Ministry of Finance put it, public money is not safe in the hands of people in civil service in this country. I dare add politicians as well among that list. I think that what we are seeing should lead us to question the commitment of this government in fighting corruption. It should lead us to question the commitment of this government to the delivery of basic social services. It should lead us to question the commitment of this government to ensuring accountability for corruption. The Prime Minister's office story is just one of those many stories. Believe me, tomorrow another will break. We'll forget about this and move on to the next. I think the media and people who discuss these things in public must help us guide the population to begin to read this systemic breakdown in the provision of services for our country, arising out of outright daylight theft by folks in government. The second point that I wish to make is we all have had investigations after another. It does seem to me that these investigations are mere smoke screen to show that we are doing something, and yet in actual sense, no one is held to account. No monies are refunded. Nobody is sent to jail. At the highest level of leadership in this country, I think that investigations such as what we are seeing today is going to end up into another report which will be challenged in court, and then nothing happens. It's a routine that we're actually going through. Look what is happening at the anti-corruption court with the Gavi scandal. Government witnesses who had earlier on confided in the IGG and investigators that theft took place now turn up in court and are actually hostile against government prosecutors. It's amazing. It's a whole web of thieves in all sorts of places at all sorts of levels. The third point I wish to make is this, that our development partners sometimes I question the motive for them in supporting some of these government processes. I think maybe they care about the general public. They care about the welfare of people in northern Uganda. That's why they pump money into the PRDP. Good. But for how long shall we begin dipping this money in a bottomless pit, where each time this money is provided, it is stolen? We make some symbolic pronouncements on radio, on TV, we will withdraw aid, we will do this. 10 days afterwards, after having coffee and wine with people in in power, this aid is restored, the same theft goes on. In fact, I'm inclined to believe that the grand domestic corruption has a direct linkage to this whole donor industry of aid. I think that if you do investigate this very seriously, you might actually find that a couple of these Western capitals are actually conduit points for some of the money stolen from our country. It could be a complex web of theft. Now, in terms of going forward, the point cannot be made any clearer than just to say we need to begin to show commitment at the highest level possible. This showmanship at the anti-corruption court has got to stop. It is simple nonsense. If we are to fight corruption and show examples to everybody else in this country that theft will be punished, we must begin to punish the folks who steal money day in, day out. One of the guys in the pension sector, the one who was arrested yesterday, is known to me personally. I know his kids. I know that his kids study in the UK. His kids live in a place called Bradford. They drive cars in the UK that even the richest kids in the UK look on with envy. And you wonder, a fellow who is in public service, perhaps on the salary of U4 or U5,
That's how much money.
how they get this money.
1.81 million.
It's just pathetic. We must begin to punish those fellows and punish them severely. There is no difference between them and Joseph Kony, in my opinion. They are all killing Ugandans. A person who steals money for malaria, for tuberculosis, commits the same crime against humanity
That's Joseph Kony.
as Joseph Kony or Commentator, whatever it is. They are all leading to deaths of people in this country. We must begin to punish them and condemn them, but also socially isolate them. The wives, children, and relatives of these guys who enjoy the loot must begin to reject this thing and tell them, look, Daddy, this is wrong, just stop it. I give a good example of a former or current spokesperson for the NRM party who allegedly stole things, who allegedly shot dead the suspect right in front of Uganda Road Primary School. The kids in that school tormented his kid so much so that he had to transfer his kids from there. They called them thieves. We must begin to call these guys by their right name. This glorifying of corruption, embezzlement, abuse of office, this is just theft. These folks are thieves.
Morrison Rwakakamba.
Yeah, I mean, what we all agree on, really, and the country is that at all levels, corruption is a cancer that has been eating us up. And I think everybody must reject it at all levels. And I think politicians from the opposition have been talking about corruption, but also equally from the NRM, they have also been talking about corruption. And I think where there is a debate, and some of the thoughts that Nicholas has been putting across, is what can we do collectively to make sure that as a country we renew the fight against corruption, and we make sure that whatever interventions we put in place are absolutely effective. Yes, you cannot run away from the interventions that are taking place. What is happening in OPM is as a result of government trying to say something is wrong here. We need to pursue it. The report that is being talked about, that has been, for instance, acted on by the Irish government, is a report of Auditor General, and the Office of the Auditor General is an institution of government, and definitely that cannot be buried under the sand. So yes, there are efforts, but are those efforts effective? That could be another issue for debate. Then the other aspect I want to talk about is related to what I said is in talking about everybody is about information and about citizens themselves trying to track this money. If we follow how this budget is made and how the money is allocated, and we know health center is supposed to be constructed in Amdad, you see, there has to be a sense that the leaders of that place of Amdad, whether they are LCs, whether they are MPs, mobilize their people to say, we have this budget line, you see, and if that health center is not built, if the medicines are not in there, if they were sent by NMS, people should rise up. And I think it's wrong to think that at the political level, that's where everything will be solved. There has to be a balance of forces where citizens are demanding, and it becomes increasingly risky for those in the politics, for those in the offices, you know, to be able to take the money or to be corrupt. So, increasing citizen vigilance, increasing citizen agency, increasing citizen monitoring the money is, for me, going to be a cornerstone of fighting and arresting corruption. But I want to make one point on this issue of withdrawing aid and cutting aid. I mean, it has really been a song. The Dutch are saying we've cut aid, the Irish are saying they have cut aid. Now this is 4 million. I've been following a debate in Dublin just this afternoon, and people saying how Uganda, the whole of Ugandans are collapsed. But this is that kind of debate and a patronizing.
That's the capital of Ireland.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it could even be a cover-up that these guys, their economy is underwater. You know the bailout of this Anglo-Irish bank, and they are still on it. The debt is so high. Their economy is run by IMF, and they will start a mechanism in their country. Even NGOs that are from Ireland that are operating in this country, they have been operating on budget cuts. So it could be true that it's not necessarily, they are not just withdrawing this because of corruption tendencies in the OPM, but because they also have problems back home. And they are
but this is a very small amount, really.
Yeah, it is a small amount, but what is happening in Ireland is that every dollar matters, every euro matters in order to get guys back to work in Dublin. And that's what's going on.
Well, so what do you think we should do about corruption in India? How should we punish this, apart from this social citizens demanding changes, social pressure?
Yeah, there has to be, effective investigations, for instance, in the corruption that is going on. So these institutions that are investigating, you see, they need to be effective. There has to be reforms in those in those institutions, and we have to make sure that the legal process, for determining those who are guilty and those who are not guilty is quickened up. And you see, there is also playing to the gallery in this case. You see, some people have been proved to be innocent. You see, when even the society was throwing eggs at them. You see. So I think what is important is to make sure that we have effective institutions and that we demand that they are effective and they run the business the way they run it. Because some people have been victims of circumstances, others, their names have been brandished, you see, even when they are mere suspects, even when they are not guilty.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, how should we deal with this monster of corruption decisively?
First of all, I would like to again wish our listeners a happy Eid evening. And I think the talk about corruption has become a song.
I wish listeners could look at her. She looks so
you see, you can talk about corruption in a general sense, but it is very painful when you actually get to the details, and you know that this money that was spent in people's individual interests was meant for reconstruction of northern Uganda, where many people have lost lives, where many children have been disoriented. They cannot catch up with the developments of the developed status of other children, where for the last 21 years, the infrastructure in northern Uganda had completely gone to a halt, and it was been everybody's wish that northern Uganda becomes part of Uganda in terms of infrastructural development, but in terms of human resource recapturing. I mean, look at the children. They've been maimed because of the war, and the women, they've been displaced. And me being a Ugandan, I wonder what type of those Ugandans can really close their hearts and mind and still money meant for such work, really. Of course, people have talked about money meant for HIV/AIDS, money meant for malaria, but for me, northern Uganda, these people did not choose to be in a situation of war. Some war people went and began fighting the war, northern Uganda, and they got cut off from development that the rest of us have enjoyed for over 20 years. And said, okay, now Kony has gone, let's stop and see how they catch up with the rest of the country. And then Ugandans go and say, oh, we cannot give them so much. Then the contradictions of, I've been reading a lot of, I know that you see it in the print media.
Yes.
There are almost weekly or monthly paid up adverts about what's happening in northern Uganda.
Yes, they've been
very good, and they are full color.
In the office of the Prime Minister.
Full color with pictures of the ministers and the permanent secretaries. I don't know whether you see them.
Yes,
one page of that full color is almost 12-13 million.
No, it's 8.8 million actually.
Yeah, they keep running. So I was wondering, while they are running the progress that we see, did they ever ask themselves of what we don't see? Because we are now, how come we have this? And while I agree with Morris that, of course, most of these, what we are seeing today are reactions from Auditor General's reports. But what has really been picked in the media, and I are discussing details of now putting the names to more or less shame and take people to prison, is because there was money that those guys not agree on sharing. So they began reporting each other. Yeah. That's what now we hear outside the reports.
Right.
That's why now we are putting the embezzlement to names. But if they have agreed and not worked from the office of the Attorney General to the Bank of Uganda to Ministry of Finance, you can see the network of government institutions to now the PM's office. If those four institutions
had agreed
and the networked guys had agreed as they have had in the past,
we'd never hear of it.
Then you do see some unexplained accountability gaps in the Auditor General's report, but you would have never been able, like it has been for a long time, put the name to the money until they disagreed. That's what we are now picking. I may be right, I might be wrong. Yes, and that's where I'm coming from. And I'm like, yes, I don't know how much we can track because some of us are really outside the decision making arena. Like you can take a signature to get somebody sacked, you can actually cause somebody to refund that money, or you can you feel hurt, you feel pained, but the most you can do is maybe to come and make this contribution on radio and really say how far can we go solo to give to our people, because now this is no longer a rumor, because sometimes you say people are against,
it's in the public domain.
It's not just a public domain, it's factual, because it's in the report of the Auditor General. But right now there are actual investigations and they are putting names to money, and it's not little money, Edmond. In the past,
billions of
because when civil servants civil servant
they talk about 169 billion
So
shillings.
in the past, you said that civil servants and only 1 million shillings of money. So maybe they're taking something really to balance their home budget.
All right.
But it's in billions. Now that's what
the children need cars and education in the UK. So, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break. We'll be back. Do stay tuned.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we're reviewing the week. The top on the list is the opium corruption scandal. Corruption scandal in the office of the Prime Minister. Will it finally bring down corruption in this country? We'll also talk about Arius Nanta, the recently approved minister, State Minister for Lands. Our guests tonight, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative of the East African Parliament, Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, former country manager TWAWEZA Uganda, now Chief Executive, Agency for Transformation, Mr. Opiyo, political consultant at AKIJUL, also commentator on political and social affairs. He gets totally disoriented. Something happens to his stomach when you talk about corruption. He's really passionate.
So I was saying that for me, I have questions, and I'm actually very worried about the money involved, because we can understand if there was a small lapse of accountability in terms of overseeing the accounting officer, there was a lapse here on a receipt, or 20 million disappeared in a bad financial year in the ministry, or 5 million disappeared here and there, or interest disappeared. But when you are an accounting officer, or you're a technical person, or you have a political supervisory role of a ministry, and you're talking about 25, 50, 100, 200 billion disappearing of programs meant for social reconstruction of your people, I have a problem with that, and I'm actually at loss with words. And for me, I think we need a complete overhaul of the civil service and systems. We should just even forget about the law. If really they prove that money got lost to these volumes, then we are not working. We just have to stop. If me about the issue of corruption is no longer, for me, it's no longer an issue now. Is assisting
the momentum of corruption.
To me, it's a big problem. You cannot afford to finish a financial year and you made a loss of 169 billion, 170, or even 200 billion, and it is discovered like it's a by the way in post-mortem. You can't allow that. We must be able to do a lot of preventive and make near losses that are understandable. I'm being understandable. Maybe through interest or some little trouble there and there, something that it was a small lapse. But I'm not convinced that an organization of government can lose 160 to 90, 200 billion shillings, and we take it as a post-mortem issue. For me, it's a very, very serious issue that actually worries me as a person.
Morrison, Rwakakamba, we used to have this National School for Political Education in Chankwanzi. Maybe we don't have cadres. People believe in their movement.
You could say that, again, it's the issue of...
That really sounds like trivializing this whole thing. It is sickening. It's corruption, isn't it?
It's really the issue of patriotism. It's the issue of reaching out to your own, country people, knowing that when I'm happy and when I'm growing, everybody else should grow. If this part of the country is growing, every other part of the country should grow. It's really that spirit. But at the end, I think there is still limited thinking, if you ask me, in terms of the whole country sitting together to find strategies, simple strategies for ending corruption. I think what we see, punitive strategies and I want to give you an example of what happened in this country. Just a simple thing that changes things. Capitation grant that goes to these public primary and secondary schools in this country for pupils. Over around 3 years ago, only 40% of the capitation money was reaching schools.
40%?
40% was reaching those schools.
60%?
60% was disappearing, somewhere around
the capital.
Yeah, so head teachers were complaining. Even when they would receive that 40%, it would reach almost at the end of the term. So, what the Ministry of Finance did, they said now, if we release money to Ministry of Education and send it directly to schools and publish it, the school, if it is Rwakakamba Primary School, it is published. If it is in Yakina Primary School, it is published. If it is a primary school in Guru, it's published.
Yes.
So when that was done, the percentage of schools that got the money, that reported to have received the money,
went up
to almost 80% in less than 1 year. So you can imagine that open architecture of being open about expenditure, being open about
releases,
where releases are going and what that money is going to do. And for those that saw their name, their school name in the newspaper,
they began to ask questions.
They began to ask questions if the money hasn't reached. But we published that the money was sent. Yes. Then they would go to the district education officer to actually ask. So this was just a small trigger, and billions of money. Okay. Billions of money was saved. So we need to think of some of strategies.
I think that's an important one. If they publish what you pay, like they say.
Yeah. But also the Overall Access to Information Act. Yeah. We know that there's a law for access to information. Yeah. But go to any government ministry using that law to get information, you never get anything. But for journalists.
I agree. But before we even get to that, let the government departments publish it. Let there be a requirement that they publish. Nicholas, before we move away from this particular.
But for PM's office, they've been running.
They've been doing promotional
to say how
not direct accountability, not explaining the figures like.
It's real accountability. Why would you do a promotion? They are saying, you have built so much schools. You have, I think what I don't understand is if it is true, really we must, because this is the leader of government business, guys. Let's not even think, because if we cannot sort out as a model ministry under the OPM's office, then where else can you do things right?
Nicholas, do you think this could have security implications? This whole auger of corruption in Kawempe, two policemen set up a counterfeit police station, and they began to handle cases. And
the point is, ultimately, the stability of this country will depend on how satisfied the citizens of this country are in terms of services that they receive. So it's going to be a deep security issue in terms of the overall governance of our country. That if you have people who are then stealing money, the long run is you're inciting people against their own government.
And what would they do with that money? Because what would an individual do with 100 who is not a government? What would you do with the over 450, 70 billion? You just need a house in Kampala if you're a worker, a house in your village where you'll be buried. You cannot if you take your child to Harvard, you cannot spend over 20 billion shillings, no? So what would you be doing unless you're going to fund insecurity services? That's what, really we must deal with it. This is a very, very serious matter. We want to know where that money is going, because it's not just about somebody's buying many houses in town. No, it is more serious than that.
Gambling in Monaco, so.
And I think it does have a link to the overall patronage system in this country, the overall system of feeding your own political constituency, and it happens across the board, not just people who are in government.
Well, but still, I mean, let's not under that. That has a limit. You probably don't need 20 billion shillings to get a constituency.
There's a very serious issue about this. To me, I think it's bigger than we meet the eye. And how you can be this guy. I really want to pray that it's not true, but that's what I'm thinking. That when the investigation has finally come out, it was an exaggerated figure. That's what I want to believe. Yeah.
I mean, certain things you really want to imagine that you'll wake up and it really wasn't true.
Yeah, it's a different.
But the truth is, the point is, whether money is stolen, if money is stolen,
yes.
So the movement child going to suffer, not the multi-parties, so that every Ugandan is going to suffer. Where is the outrage? Where is the outrage? When Kizito is beaten near Mulago,
maybe there's apathy. People feel disconnected from the state.
Riot, people complain. When they steal money in this magnitude, we don't seem to have the same outrage.
How would you measure outrage?
It impacts on services. You remember when there was no electricity on William, which is
on Nkrumah Road.
On Nkrumah Road and Nasa Road.
They burned tires.
And then you had those traders saying we cannot make ends meet.
They blocked the road and power was restored.
We are paying rent without working.
We are paying rent
without working.
Yeah. And you see some of those issues had to be resolved.
They blocked the road. Let's get the clarity. They blocked the road. There was a riot, and the power was restored the same day.
Yeah, so you need citizen action. Citizens need to be outraged. This is what I was
by this stuff.
Yeah. By this kind of stuff. If it is service delivery, NADS boats are not reaching. People should ask those questions. Why is it that NADS was given 60 billion and the money is not reaching us as farmers? You need to have farmers associations. You need to have teachers unions. Asking those hard questions.
Let's move forward before the stomach begins to churn. The Nantaba vetting saga, in the twist of events, the appointments committee, this time chaired by Jacob Olanya, approved Kayunga District MP Ida Nantaba State Minister for Lands. Alia Kadaga, the Speaker of Parliament, had chaired the same committee, and they said she doesn't qualify. Now she qualifies. What could have changed, Nicholas Opiyo? We know you're a big fan of Nantaba. How did you celebrate?
And where did you meet?
I don't know where the best is. I don't even know Nantaba as a person, apart from seeing her
sympathizing from a distance.
Public space. But you see, the point is, I think it's not even about the person of Nantaba. I mean, discussing her as a person would be, for me, to miss the bigger picture. It's the whole system of our government is run. And in my view, the bottom line is, do you trust this parliament when it comes to keeping their word? The answer is no, I don't. I mean, they make all sorts of noise about all sorts of things, and when push comes to shove, what do? Turn around and eat their own words. I do not trust this parliament. I think that we still need more concrete actions, more. And I see it's not just this particular appointment. There have been many other instances where, Parliament saying this and making noise about that, and then they turn around and say a different thing altogether. Do you trust this parliament? The jury is still out there on them. I don't.
Well, they rejected 6 presidential nominees the last time.
Well, there have been moments where you have some hope, and you think that things are going to move forward, and that they will keep their word on many issues. But there have also been moments where they have really let this country down, and I think that such actions do not, in my view, build confidence in the institution of parliament. If they cannot be consistent, if they cannot be transparent in what they do, Ugandans, at least speaking for myself, will not trust them anymore. I think that what they have demonstrated, in my view, is again flip-flopping, they're like Obama said, all over the map.
Well, but it's still not the entire parliament. It's a committee which was not even fully constituted.
That committee works on behalf of the House.
Well, the jury is still out.
That committee works for the House. And again, in my view, what they should be asking then, because for over 6 months, that cabinet has not been fully constituted. You can even argue that ever since the last election, the cabinet wasn't constituted.
About 20 months.
But I see things were moving smoothly. There wasn't a crisis. Then you ask yourself, do we actually need a stadium-sized cabinet around President Museveni? Do we need all of them? What will Nantaba bring to the table? Even if she's not there, this country will move on. What purpose do they serve? I think, in my view, it's simple feeling of patronage and nothing else in terms of services. I mean, what expertise will Nantaba bring to the table? My view is, I'm yet to see.
I don't think we should crucify the Honorable Nantaba. Really.
I wasn't crucifying her.
No. The public, I've been following the debate. And I think it's really a wrong debate. You see, she was a presidential nominee, and I think the due process was followed, and finally the committee approved her. And really,
is that, Nicholas, let's get the legal perspective. There have been arguments that the appointments committee did not have the power to go back on its word.
You see, the thing is, you've got to look at the interpretation of, I think, Rule 151, Clause 1, and Rule 160, Clause 1, whether a committee can reconsider its position. My view is that the committee cannot sit to hear a case in which they have pronounced themselves. The right procedure would be, in my view, to
an appeal.
The whole House.
They pronounced themselves and said she has to apologize.
The provision,
and that's how they pronounced themselves. They said she would have to apologize because I think they accused her of more problems, and she apologized.
Well, but before Rebecca Kadaga traveled, she actually said, the president said he's cancelled, and she agreed to apologize. But the committee, Kadaga said, you can only go to the plenary. When did we get back to the committee again?
But again, it's twisting of the rules, because my reading of Rule 150 Clause 1, that the Deputy Speaker cites as a basis for his action, would only apply if, for example, an appointment has been deferred. But when an appointment has not been deferred, in effect rejected, and that rejection communicated to the President, the only recourse would be, in my view,
the plenary,
to apply Rule 161, which is to appeal to the whole House.
Let me finish my point. I think we really get carried away and by non-issues, and I want to really agree with Nicholas that there are very serious issues that this country, especially our parliament, should be really discussing. And one of those, like the debate on oil, on management of those resources.
Well, but this is part of their job. They're supposed to approve appointments.
Allocation of those resources to, invest in productive sectors of the economy, creating jobs. This is the country we are suffering no jobs and stuff like that. And you have, Vision 2040. Is it interesting? Can it change this economy? energy. How do we harness energy and have all those issues in place? There are so many issues that this parliament should spend its time on, other than like non-issues of having, I think almost 1 month quarreling around Nantawa. I mean, I think we need to be better.
Is that something you agree with, Nicholas?
I do absolutely agree with him. I think there are bigger.
Well, but even if a procedural matter arose, you think they should
if you look at the performance of the 9th Parliament, Parliament has 3 core functions: legislation, oversight, okay,
and representation.
This Parliament has spent 90% of its time on making noise about oversight functions, even if their discussions don't really yield results. Look at the other work that they're supposed to do. Legislation, how many bills are pending in that house?
They've been weak there.
How many issues, bills, even bills that are carried over from the 8th Parliament? In my view, in that function, they have not performed. They just want to get media attention, talk about these issues.
Playing to the gallery.
The things that Ugandans care about most. The anti-money laundering bill before that house, it was carried forward from the last house. The discussions over that bill hasn't taken off. The Companies Amendment Act, critical to business formation in this country, not discussed.
They want to create one-man companies, OPCs.
The oil bills, months on end, the bills are still pending. We need movement towards those things that will change this country and make it a more productive country.
But you said corruption, you almost shed tears about corruption. Don't you think the oversight role is an important one? Deal with corruption, get it out of the way, and then you can move on other things.
It's important, but you see, the thing is that the way that Parliament works, there has to be a balance between all of these functions. Corruption, in my view, could be dealt with as a bigger problem. You can either review legislation, you talked about it. Now we know, for example, because of court decisions, the office of the IGG is toothless. I can tell you this. There was a whole pullout by a citizen of this country. I don't know what motivated him. He paid 8 million shillings to run a whole pullout in the New Vision, talking about how toothless the office of the IG is. And I agree with him. Perhaps we could look at those things as means of fighting corruption. We can look at things like allocation of resources. Appointment of judges, for example, is an important issue. The Supreme Court must have 11 Supreme Court justices. We have only 5. 2 are retiring. The Court of Appeal must have 15 judges. There are only 6. 2 are retiring.
6 out of 15.
Exactly. Those are important issues that we don't seem to be discussing. Rather, some little, small, beautiful girl from Kayunga.
Is she beautiful?
I think she is.
No. I take exception on that one.
Honorable
Aida Elias Nataba is a member of Parliament in the Parliament of Uganda, 9th Parliament, and I know that it's not very easy to win an election. Therefore, I think we should give her status and give her that due respect. We shouldn't be like the way she has been treated and crucified, both by people that don't have proper information about how she went through, and number 2, even the way some not all, some media have been able to talk out. I mean, she has been stigmatized, and this is a member of Parliament, and she has a mandate of people for 5 years. So I think now that I'm on this, really we should give her that
apology for that. I'm sounding sexy.
On the issue of for me, I actually put myself in her shoes, and having said that, I thought that Parliament owes it to the public to review their rules so that they make the appointments committee vetting process public. They are the very ones in their rules who said that the vetting process is in camera. But even before Edmond, before they even leave, whatever meeting they have had, they begin sending SMSs.
They send text to media houses.
To the media houses. You before they are out, you begin, if you have a radio with you, or even if your phone, you begin getting pieces and bits of information of what's taking place. So they have defeated their own cause. They have disrespected their own rules. Forget about flouting and whatever. From the word you go, because even now we wouldn't be debating anything if they had kept to the rule of the cameras in secrecy of that, because there would be communication between them and appointing authority, and would have never known if they had respected themselves and their rules. So for me, until Parliament has lived to its rules. I cannot really debate.
Maybe they're rebelling against those rules because they
I
think
have
they're
no
unfair. Maybe
idea.
they want them lifted.
That is my opinion on that one.
So what do you say about Nantaba? Now statement.
I've finished. I said that she is a member of Parliament, and I think
Let's talk about
we should not forget
Let's
that.
talk about the strategic choice. What kind of prowess does she bring into that meeting? What kind of changes?
But cabinet has 72 members. How long do you have to pick on one
Minister
person?
for Land.
You may want to
No, it's not
why
fair.
appointed her. You want to ask the
I think that goes to the appointing authority and to the authorizing authority now, which is the
You're failing to
Parliament.
give her credit. She fought land grabbers in Kayunga. You don't want to give that
No,
credit.
I cannot just come here because now I'm doing many things, including myself. But I cannot come here to begin saying, "Oh, pick out one member of Parliament." There are 375 members of Parliament. But for her as a person, she should be given her space because she's a member of Parliament, and I think we should respect that.
And now she's a
And she could be, she, me as long as Parliament does not stand up to follow their own rules, especially on the issue of the secrecy of the decision of that committee. I leave it to them.
We have to move forward. Let's talk about the
They
homosexuality.
must deal with that.
Homosexuality. As Nantaba was being approved, the Speaker of Parliament was in Canada. She was attending this IPU, the Interparliamentary Union meeting. She shot back at the Foreign Minister of Canada, telling him that Uganda is not a fiefdom of Canada, so they should stop lecturing us. The minister had said Uganda is intolerant to homosexuals. Let's hear your own views, Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba. Should homosexuality be allowed in this place? Or
I think John. I think Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs. I think John Baird was. I think he was a bit kind of professorial and lecturing this student and this small kid called Uganda. I think that kind of headmastership from some of these Western countries, it really has stopped.
it's normally called the mindset of a kindergarten headmistress.
Yeah, I mean, I really think they have to begin respecting our processes, they have to begin respecting our democracies, they have to begin respecting our leaders, they have to and respecting our country. You don't stand in front of a gathering of speakers and members of parliament across the world and begin accusing a country without any basis. And I'm glad that Honorable Kadaga educated him.
She shot back with two barrels. Nicholas Opiyo.
There are two different issues here that we shouldn't really, in my view, confuse. The first is the overall question of the sovereignty of the country called Uganda and its power, inherent right as a country to be able to have discussions in its municipal systems, including parliament. That's one issue. The second issue that we shouldn't confuse is the overall question of the rights of sexual minorities, not just LGBT.
Rights of sexual. Let's underline your words, Nicholas Opiyo. Yeah, rights activist.
Exactly. I mean what I said. Rights of sexual minorities. These are two different issues. So in reference to the first, I think the Speaker was right to defend the sovereign power of Uganda to have its own discussions as a country, determine its own municipal laws.
But she was wrong.
Perfectly okay. What I do think, though, is that perhaps she was, and again, this is just typical Kadaga, when she's passionate about something, she can just shoot off the hip. I think that perhaps there could have been more diplomatic and strong objections to the domineering and patronizing attitude of certain Western countries. In reference to the second question, the overall question of LGBT, the notion that LGBT practice is a Western culture,
Maybe we'll talk about that on
first
another
and
occasion.
foremost, is wrong.
Okay, we'll talk about that in detail on
We
another
cannot
occasion.
consign these folks to places
Okay.
in Karamoja in a camp. They have
Okay.
rights as all Ugandans, and they must
Honorable Wanyoto, what's your view? Kadaga defense.
I think it's also the role of every Ugandan, when the moment you bought the plane out of Uganda, to defend the interests of our country. And that's why it's very important for us to have our national values and norms off our sleeves, so that we really move with the national identity that makes us proud to speak for Uganda. And having said that, I think this debate has been on even before Canada. There is a way Uganda has been, there have been efforts to twist Uganda to either tone down or to be more, give space to what we think cultural practices that have no space for Uganda culture and also values. And therefore, this debate can continue. But for me, yeah, we don't have homosexuality as a culture practice in Uganda. We don't. It's not even in our laws. That's what I'm saying. At this specifically. But I'm looking at the broader picture that we owe it to Uganda when we go out, really, to defend our country.
Cultural values.
Yeah, even our economic, but even our sovereign identity is very, very important. Because sometimes, even when you are faced with these aid negotiations,
yes,
you can end up feeling like you want to compromise, or even issues. Look at security.
Right.
When they begin fixing us on matters of how we are dealing with our neighbors, we must stand up to our country. First of all, fix ourselves internally. Are we doing it right? Then when we go out there, we all speak as Ugandans, with or without any leadership tag, because we owe it to Uganda.
Honorable Wanyoto, today is Eid Day. Slaughtering of animals, going to mosques by the Muslims. They couldn't go to Mecca because of Ebola, and then Ebola at that time. Exams were sat today. It was supposed to be a public holiday. Children went to school and they had to sit exams, and then of capital, the exam in Islam, the exam on Islam was the wrong exam. Give us your own view broadly about.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I congratulate Ugandans, but also specifically our brothers and sisters in the Islam community for marking this day, Eid, but also for our country for making it a public holiday, for recognizing it's in other countries it's not, but Uganda, we are proud to recognize different faith-based values and their practice, and then we stand by them, because I'm not a Muslim, I need to go to work, so we have supported our brothers and sisters to celebrate and mark their faith today. And that's good for Uganda, and I want to congratulate the government. But that's the other issue you're asking about, of sitting a wrong exam. This is the first time actually in a long time. I think you never has been smart for many years that people do the syllabus, and when they conclude, they go sit the exams over syllabus. But before, we had the outcry that very evening that everybody was saying that the exam was wrong. So I think there was and with the leadership of Fajil Mande, this is really a bad beginning for the people. That when he joins UNEP, then everything is going to be right. So
some things are already been done.
That's unfortunate, but we hope that they can correct it. And then, and of course, an interesting coincidence that they did the exam that was wrong was Islam, and yet it is their week for Islam. So it is funny. But I want to support the calendar of UNEP, because they could not, Eid, unlike other days, you can never know the actual day. It comes in.
My calendar was actually red.
This you actually can. This you can.
My calendar was red.
So then we don't know why they had to make children sit exams on the day. But I thought that because of whatever.
Morrison, Rwakakamba.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that was a hitch. They could have, anticipated this day, because I think on my calendar it's also marked red.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't think we should. They can apologize, and we can forgive.
Terror is human. It's not a huge issue.
And I really want to encourage our Muslim brothers and sisters to forgive the entire UNEP, and give Fajil Mind a chance to refine it.
Nicholas Opiyo. And it seems they didn't go to Mecca this time. It looks like it was the second time.
On this important day, I have dedicated it to Muslim women.
Oh.
I think that we need to begin to think about freeing women to be able to have equal access and opportunity like men. In particular, my mind today was with Malala, who is struggling against gun wounds inflicted upon her by Muslim extremists in Pakistan. And we pray that she recovers and continues her campaign for equal access to education for women.
Opiyo has really made about, and I thank you. You've made my day.
Well, thank you very much. There's something to smile about at the end of it. Thank you very much, dear guests. Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative of the East African Parliament. Thank you for coming to Spectrum tonight. Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, Chief Executive, Agency for Transformation. Previously was Country Manager at TWAWEZA. Thank you for coming to Spectrum tonight. Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, Legal Consultant at AKIJUL, also commentator on social and political affairs. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Spectrum will be back on Monday. Have a blessed weekend.
At Tusker, our expert brewers believe in taking the time to get things just right.